everyone to the South Kohala Coastal Partnership Speaker Series. And I'm Lauren Carpita, the coordinator of the partnership. And the goal of this series is to provide an opportunity to learn more about the partners and the work being done in South Kohala. And the catalyst that started this was that the State Division of Aquatic Resources and the Coral Reef Working Group identified South Kohala as a priority area for the Coral Reef Strategy to implement actions to reduce anthropogenic impacts to the reef. And in 2018, over 30 organizations and agencies participated in creating the conservation action plan that is guiding South Kohala currently. And today with us, we have Kim Hung, who is NOAA's new superintendent of the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. And prior to joining NOAA, Kim was with the Nature Conservancy in Hawaii for 32 years. She served as the program director since 2000, where she worked closely with state, federal, and community partners to manage and restore our island's reefs, nearshore fisheries, and coastal environment. We also have Cindy Among-Serrao, who is a contractor with the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation as the Hawaii Island Program Coordinator of NOAA's Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. And Cindy has been with the sanctuary since 2015, doing a variety of education and outreach, coordinating the annual sanctuaries, ocean counts, and more. And we are very fortunate to have them both here to give their presentation, Where and What is the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary?
Thanks, Lauren. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you guys for coming. I know it sounds like we are competing with a couple of other presentations, but really appreciate you taking the time. And Cindy, if you don't mind doing the slides, that would be great. So as Lauren said, I'm Kim, and I worked with Lauren and Becca and others at the Nature Conservancy for many, many years, and just came to NOAA in July. And Cindy is our only staff member on Hawaii Island, and she is so awesome. She can handle the whole island by herself. So we'll be tag teaming today. Feel free to ask questions if you have any questions while we're doing the presentation. If something's not clear, just go ahead and interrupt, and we will go ahead and get started. Cindy, so we're talking about the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. It's a mouthful, so let's just say the Whale Sanctuary. And here we are located in the main Hawaiian Islands. We are part of a National Marine Sanctuary system that includes 15 sanctuaries, 2 marine national monuments, including Papahanaumokuakea. And the visitor center for Papahanaumokuakea, as many of you may know, is in Hilo. If you haven't been there, you should go because it's amazing. And I am located here in Kihei, and you can see where the other sanctuaries and monuments and proposed sanctuaries are here on this map. Next slide. So we have 2 offices right now, Kihei, Maui on the left, and that's where I am. And then in Lehue and Kauai, and Jean Souza leads our efforts there. And that is in a shopping mall in Lehue, which actually is fantastic because we get a ton of people coming through and learning about not just the Humpback Whale Sanctuary, but about ocean resources generally. Next slide. And these are our staff. And so on the top row, we're all in Kihei. You'll see Janine Rosa there, second from the left in the second row. And Janine is actually our state co-manager. And all of the other folks that you see here work either directly for NOAA or contracted with NOAA. Next slide. So what is the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale Sanctuary? What and where? So you can see on this slide, there are 5 different protected areas across 6 islands. Most relevant to you all will be the sort of North Kona, South Kohala section of the sanctuary. And then the largest portion of the sanctuary is here in Maui Nui, a couple of sections on Oahu and one on Kauai. Basically, the boundaries go from shoreline out to about 600 feet depth, and that's really preferred habitat for humpback whales. We are co-managed in partnership with the state. Most of the 1,370 square miles of sanctuary is actually in state waters. And so we manage with DLNR and DAR directly. We also have guidance from an advisory council that is a statewide council of community members, business members, and also other government agencies. And that is really, they provide advice, guidance, and are like the South Kohala Partnership, sort of the eyes and ears and getting information going out to partners and constituents and coming in from those various communities. Next slide. So the sanctuary was designated to protect the winter mating, calving, and nursing habitat for the largest humpback whale population in the Pacific. As you guys probably know, humpback whales are here from about November through May. Peak season is now January through March, and they are generally in the leeward waters of each of the islands. Next slide. Our mission at the sanctuary is to protect Hawaii's humpback whale population and their habitat. So that, again, that habitat is from shoreline out to about 600 foot depth through education, research, and resource protection efforts with partners like you all, like the members of the South Kohala Partnership. Next slide. So the goals of the sanctuary are to maintain and improve the condition of humpback whales and their habitat, to increase awareness of humpback whales and support for the sanctuary's mission to protect them, and to advance collaboration and coordination. Next slide. So Cindy's going to talk a little bit about the management part of what we do. And then we'll also talk about research and education and outreach.
All right, I forgot to unmute. You'd think after a few years doing these virtual settings, I would be used to it, but still not yet. So kind of going into, like Kim said, that our sanctuary works really hard with education, research, and resource protection. I'll go a little bit more into resource protection. I'm not the primary staff for resource protection, but I will do my best to represent. So just this slide right now, you'll see talking about an ARM, a assessment recording module, which is kind of a more recent tech that some of our resource protection staff have been utilizing. And basically kind of what the image outlines, it's allowing the staff to do visual health and risk assessments, scar analysis, whether it be from entanglement, boat strikes, any types of things like that, or maybe it's just natural predator scars, underwater photogrammetry, entanglement assessment, fluke IDs, etc. So basically there's this arm that goes off the side of the boat, and we do have a research vessel located in Maui, and it's called the Kohala. So Kohala is Hawaiian for humpback whale. And basically what this arm allows our staff to do is have real-time images of these whales underwater that they are approaching, and it's especially effective for if it's an entanglement case. They're able to see what severity that this entanglement may be, and how they can move forward to assessing and possibly putting out a rescue effort to remove that entanglement gear. So very helpful. And also fluke IDs. Fluke IDs is very big for researchers, not only in Hawaii, but all over nationally. As folks might have learned, the fluke of a humpback whale is very unique to itself. It's similar to our fingerprints for humans. No other person will have the same fingerprint. So same goes for humpback whales, just with their whale fluke patterns, colors, the different variations that may be. So very helpful to get those images, because a lot of researchers actually provide these photos to Happy Whale, which is a great large database where folks can submit photos of humpback whale flukes. And if there's a match, they can see where that humpback whale has been seen. So it's a very valuable tool. And it's also something that anyone that has a camera can participate in. Once again, that's Happy Whale. So it's just one of the kind of tools that has been really helpful in doing health and risk assessments for our staff and other researchers. And then kind of going more into utilizing those images, as well as what Ed Lyman, our head staff for the resource protection aspects of our humpback whales, is entanglement scar analysis. So kind of what the first graph is saying is % of non-lethal entanglements of humpback whales in Hawaii based on scar analysis. So definitely things that aren't really reducing the mobility of humpback whales, etc. And then below is the second graph is the scar rate percentage. And of course, underneath it kind of mentions what type of, or where the type they've seen the scars. And I know I'm getting a little finicky on this one because I'm no expert in it, but Ed Lyman and his fellow researchers do a really good job with kind of noting the analysis of the different scars on different humpback whales that they view during the season.
And again, I'll just chime in here that this is about health and risk assessment, and the goal there is to understand what are the primary threats. And so these are mostly from boat strikes or entanglement, and to quantify that so that we can make recommendations for management.
Yes, thank you, Kim. Kind of going more into what other kind of technology has been really helpful in providing these health and risk assessments of our humpback whales. Drones have been very helpful for aerial assessments, and also deployments, which I believe there's another slide on that. But it allows them to get an aerial perspective on what the humpback whales risk, injury, or entanglement may be. It's a way to safely assess entangled and otherwise compromised whales. So not getting so up close and personal to the whales that causes very high stress levels for the animal. So being a very standoff approach, which is very beneficial for both the safety and well-being of the whales, as well as safety of the staff members on the boats or vessels. It's also very great for the aerial-based scar/wound analysis, behavior analysis, and a newer thing is deployment of suction cup tags. And Kim will go a little bit more into the suction cup tags that our head research ecologist Mark Lammers kind of leads every season. But drones have been very helpful. We're able to utilize them to deploy suction tags onto the whales, and it's very standoff approach once again, so very beneficial to the whales as well as to the researchers. And of course, another thing that is still very much being tested, but another way to kind of deployment of disentanglement tools. So very helpful for another standoff approach for disentanglement process. And then I won't go too into detail about this, but this is a great image / graph that Ed has provided on health and risk assessment, the effects of climate change. This definitely talks more about the different gear types involved in entanglements. Or it allows them to learn more about the gear types involved in entanglements, source or origin of gear. This is something they've been kind of looking more into, because if they're able to identify what type of gear is really impacting or entangling these whales, then we can provide better management and propose ways to mitigate the amount of entanglements with that specific gear type. So another way that this helps provide context into why we suggest this management of this type of gear is important for the safe and well-being of our humpback whales. And then, of course, the age class involved in entanglements and how entangled increase in mouth entanglements. So I won't go too into it, but just some of the things that Ed and his team are really looking into. And then is this, oh yeah. We kind of mentioned briefly about telemetry or using suction tags on kind of tracking whales or providing more research knowledge. So tracking entangled whales for additional response. There's two different types of tracking or telemetry things that Ed and his team use for entangled whales as well as research. Tethered is basically this green picture. If you can see this buoy, this telemetry buoy and the pinger next to it. When doing a response, if the whale is really kind of hard to find or track, first things first is getting their eyes on it and seeing the gear, or confirming it's an entanglement and seeing the trailing gear, if any, and getting a telemetry tracking device on top of that trailing gear so that they are able to track the movements of the whale and kind of predict where, when they are able to kind of make was a response effort for that whale. So very important tool to kind of start off the process of a disentanglement effort. Of course, there's also suction cup tags that have telemetry or satellite pingers as well to help find that humpback whale. It is a temporary effort for tracking any compromised whales. They do have a self lock that kind of disintegrates over time thanks to exposure to salt water, and it would of course get released after a certain amount of time. So the faster or sooner they can make a entanglement response, the better for the whale survivability. What else? Quantifying energetic cost of risk factors. This kind of goes into the health and risk assessment. They want to do the best response possible for the safety and well-being of the whale. And of course, always determining the operational risk of entanglement response. If the humpback whale seems to be very agitated, they're doing a lot of these surface behaviors that folks know is they're not happy with your presence being around them, then they kind of fall back. And of course, safety is kind of the key thing here, not safety for the whales as well as safety for the staff that are pursuing a disentanglement response. And just kind of going more into the overview of the large whale entanglement response network that Ed Lyman kind of leads. This year, they're able to go out and do annual different island trainings to kind of revamp, refresh each island's kind of disentanglement training or entanglement response network group. So they established and led a community-based, basically what this large whale entanglement response network allows for different communities, led a community-based response network at different locations on different islands. Within the response can include state and federal agencies, tour operators, fishermen, and other partners. It's really important when they have these on-water community folks, because they're out there almost every day, whether it's fishing, for commercial fishing, recreational fishing. So it's really great because their eyes are always out on the water and they know how to navigate currents, etc., and kind of they're familiar with the area. at which they probably encounter whales every season. Kind of overview, they freed 45 whales from over 15,000 feet of measurable gear. They helped free over 100 whales through training and advising. And also, they play a very big effort in gaining information, the science behind the disentanglement, and of course, reducing the threat. So there's been over 75 sets of gear identified from the Large Whale Entanglement Response Network. And I am going to pass it on to Kim for research.
Thanks, Cindy. And so again, basically 3 goals for the sanctuary. One is management, and that is what Cindy just spoke to. And that is the main take home there, I think, is that there's a network of responders. So the focus of our management right now is entanglement response. You have people out on the water on each of the islands. If they see a compromised whale, we're the first call that they make, and our staff go out to respond on all of the islands. We are located here on Maui, but we'll fly to another island to help track and free a whale if at all possible. Second piece of what we do is research, and that's really about learning more about whale health, abundance, population changes over time, so that we can make recommendations for adaptive management. So I'm going to quickly go through some of our research. Again, this is all in partnership with others, with the state, and with most often academic researchers. One of the primary focus of our research program is really on acoustic monitoring. And that is really listening to whales. And why do we do that? There's a lot of reasons, but the primary reason is to be able to then extrapolate to the amount of song that we're hearing, to the changes in population over time. And this graph is a little bit messy. I see Stephen on this call, but just want to point out the main thing here is in 2015, there were a variety of heating events. And those of us who were doing coral reef research at the time saw that in increased bleaching. Anybody who got in the water knows that in basically 14 through 16, the water was warmer. But what we can see here is that in 2015, that's sort of that teal color, high numbers of whales. But you'll see 2016, 17, a significant 50% decrease in whale song. And that correlates with what people were seeing on the water. Fewer whales were coming to Hawaii. And then you'll see in 2018, those numbers started to recover. 2020, they got back up to sort of pre-heating event numbers. And we're continuing to see in 2021 and 2022 season that those numbers are staying fairly consistent, but we saw a 50% drop in whale song after the 2015 event. And in discussions over the past 5-6 years, the theory is that there was a significant impact. Well, we know that there was a significant impact on the food source for whales. So they're feeding up in Alaska and Canada, and then they come down to Hawaii in the winter to mate and raise their calves. But if you're not getting enough food in the summer, you can't make the trip all the way to Hawaii because they're not eating here. So what we think happened is that there wasn't enough food. Some of them tried to come, didn't make it. So the whales that we saw coming in 2016, 17 were more emaciated. And so maybe they came down to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, but not all the way down to the main Hawaiian Islands, but a definite decrease in numbers. Next slide. We also do just vessel transect surveys to try and get a sense of numbers of whales. And again, this is really kind of year to year, being able to assess what's happening over time. There hasn't been a real effort to understand sort of overall numbers of whales since the early 2000s. And at that time, it was estimated around 10,000 to 12,000 whales coming to Hawaii each year. There is a current effort over the last couple of years to, again, try and estimate total population numbers. And there should be some papers coming out very soon on that. But these vessel surveys the surveys that we do is really looking at changes over time in whale numbers. Next slide. And this is what Cindy was mentioning, somewhat new research that we've been doing, tagging whales. There's a lot of information on these little tags, but some of the newer tags have video. So we're able to see what's happening under the water. The tags stay on anywhere from around 2 hours to, the longest have been overnight. But starting to get a sense of what's happening, what whales are doing throughout their day, and just some really, I think, preliminary information that, again, the goal is to help us better understand behavior so that we can manage really human behavior around whales. We can make recommendations for how people interact with whales. Next slide. And this is actually an interesting project that we did in partnership with the monument, Papahanaumokuakea, and that was using wave glider, going from the Big Island up through the monument, and so making a circular trip. You can see the map there on the top right, and then again quantifying whale song. So what are we hearing? And you'll see actually the graph at the bottom basically shows what we recorded through the wave glider throughout that trip. And there's kind of this interesting break at Gardner Pinnacles where we don't hear a lot of whales. And so there's a question that was raised about are whales going from the main Hawaiian Islands up to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, maybe as far as Gardner Pinnacles. Do they go on to use the further northern islands, or is that a separate, distinct population that may be coming from elsewhere down to the northernmost main Hawaiian or Northwest Hawaiian Islands? So it's a question that's out there. More research is needed to help us understand the population dynamics there. Next slide. And then the third goal for the sanctuary is education and outreach. And Cindy's gonna talk more about that.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, so education outreach, this is my bread and butter. This is kind of one of the main tasks that I have been doing. So just showing a bunch of actually recent images of education outreach that we've been doing on island. We were all blessed to be getting back to in-person outreach, education and outreach events last year around the summertime. So since then, we're able to do World's Ocean Day at Papahanaumokuakea's Mokupapapa Discovery Center. We also had a big year last year celebrating not only the 50th anniversary of National Marine Sanctuary System, but also the 30th anniversary of our own sanctuary, Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. So we had a little event at the Mokupapapa Discovery Center, as well as at our Kauai Discovery Center, and then also more recently this past weekend at our Kihei Visitor Center, which is now revamped and refurbished. So if anybody is out on Maui and Kihei side, then please do stop by our new upgraded or updated visitor center, because just from photos alone, it looks beautiful. So yeah, we do a lot of variety of education and outreach on all islands, even Oahu, although we don't have any education outreach staff on island. We do fly over and are able to do different events at Waikiki Aquarium. In fact, this past Saturday, I was able to do a teacher workshop on humpback whales, kind of 101, and it was paired with a whale watching cruise, which went very well. It is a partnership that we have with Atlantis. That we have done prior to COVID, but of course, due to the pandemic, it's kind of been paused. But it's great to see that relationship and partnership being brought back up for it, and also benefiting a lot of our teachers around the islands and state. So kind of going a little bit over. Also, we have a lot of great partnerships, especially with the Hawaii Public Library System. There are 51 public libraries in the Hawaiian Islands, and we do have a MOA, a Memorandum of Agreement with the Public Library System, which allows for a lot of different opportunities with them. This is just a few of the display boards that we were able to help them with last summer. They do have their annual summer reading program at the library systems, and we kind of partner with them to help them provide content for these, not only the bulletin boards, and also they were doing activities, weekly activities that some of our Maui staff have helped prepare for as well. Also available for special event days, and we hope to kind of continue flourishing this partnership, whether it's with lectures, NOAA days, or maybe local organization days at these different locations, because there's a lot of beneficial opportunities for our keiki that go to the library, and even our adults. So yeah, a lot of fun things happening on island as well as around the state, and more to come with this flourishing partnership with the public library system. And then kind of this has been our pride and joy since we received it. I forget how long ago, but this is our life-size inflatable humpback whale that also just made another presence at the Kihei Visitor Center reopening. This is a really great tool and prop to not only show just how massive these humpback whales are, you are able to go inside it, and it kind of, this great picture on the right-hand side shows kind of the inflated organs inside of it. And also in the front is painted baleen. So really, really great educational tool for all ages that we are hoping to get revamped and have the whale travel the different islands so that we can further educate and provide public awareness about humpback whales, the sanctuary, and of course, how to continue flourishing these humpback whales habitats and their populations in any way you can help. So a lot of opportunities for that. And if folks are interested, we can talk about it on having Kamakai, the humpback whale, be at a future event possibly. And yeah, it's a very great outreach prop for sure. We also have a lot of variety of different volunteer opportunities. A lot of these ones are on Maui. So we have, of course, outreach stations at the Maui Ocean Center, Team Ocean Patrol, which is a bunch of kayakers during whale season, trained kayakers. And basically what they do is they're out on the water to let folks know that there are regulations, so please keep your distance from humpback whales. Do not approach within the 100 yards, and of course we have beach patrol folks and whale watch docents who are kind of serve as naturalists on some of these whale watching tours. And of course, community outreach events. We love getting out there and educating folks on humpback whales and the sanctuary. So that's always an opportunity, and to get involved as a volunteer with the sanctuary. And kind of going more into volunteering opportunities, the Sanctuary Ocean Count, which is a shore-based whale watching opportunity, and it's done on the islands of Oahu, Kauai, and Hawaii Island. Maui does have a similar effort run by Pacific Whale Foundation, and basically during the peak months of the season, we have volunteers at designated ocean count sites, which are labeled at all these on the different map images. And what they're doing is tallying the number of humpback whales seen at their site, and they also tally the different whale behaviors that they are done or that they also see as well. It's a really good, it started in 1996, so it's been running for quite a bit now. And this year is the first time we're having volunteers back at for all 3 events, because of course due to the pandemic we had to kind of restrain having volunteers just for safety aspects, because safety is our top priority on many different programs. And so it's really great that we're kind of back in action with having general volunteers join our trained site leaders at each site to kind of do this. Why it's important, it's actually a very supplemental tool to kind of see the different whale numbers noted at these events, and kind of look at it and compare it to some of our audio hydrophone acoustic data. They can kind of supplement that, oh, whales weren't seen on this day, and that actually shows in our other research like audio recordings or audio. So it's a supplemental monitoring effort, which is really helpful because, as we all know, the humpback whales were delisted in 2016. And so it's really important that we kind of monitor the humpback whale populations and so that it can continue flourishing and hopefully never have to go back on the endangered species list again. But yeah, it's a really great opportunity. And it's also very fun for kids, families to participate in the ocean counts, because who doesn't love being out on the ocean? It's 4 hours of data collection, viewing whales. And it's also something that can be adapted into other data collection on, or can be modified to tailor to other data collections on the ocean, or you can modify it to do other activities with students, families, etc. So it's a really good program. And here's just a few photos from our last year's events. And this is a whale that was seen off of Lanai Lookout on Oahu. It was having a ball and doing a lot of whale behaviors, breaches, slaps, and etc. And our site leader was able to get a photo of it. And then, of course, as a friendly reminder, we need to just note the regulations and guidelines for humpback whales in Hawaiian waters. They are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, State of Hawaii law, and the National Marine Sanctuaries Act, which, of course, the guidelines are prohibits approaching humpback whales by any means within 100 yards when on or in the water. So that includes swimming, paddleboarding, on a boat, etc. And then, of course, 1,000 feet when operating an aircraft. And then just to kind of plug in, there's some hotlines. If you were to report or see an injured or entangled marine mammal, you can contact the NOAA Marine Mammal Hotline. And then if you do suspect a close approach or other violation, you can call the NOAA Fisheries Enforcement Hotline, which I put on the slide as well. And some of the key things for when you do happen to see any of these, an injured or entangled or a suspected close approach, is having video or photo evidence, because it really helps speed up the process to confirming that it was a approach or an entangled animal. And yeah, I will pass it now to Kim for a couple more slides.
Thanks, Cindy. Yeah, one other friendly reminder on regulations and guidelines. This is really about guidelines, and you can see on the right a graph of boat strikes in Hawaii between 1980 and 2020, and you can see the increase in boat strikes. And when a group of researchers, including our staff, looked at the primary cause of the strikes, it really had to do with vessel speed, numbers of vessels out there and vessel speed. And so we're working with Pacific Whale Foundation and others, DAR, on a Go Slow Whales Below campaign. And that's really about reducing speeds during whale season when you're in whale habitat. and then if you see whales. So you'll see more, I think, during whale season. There's lots of PSAs and information out about recommended speed limits in whale habitat. And then last slide, I believe, Cindy, is just looking at the opportunities, and kind of the thing that I want to make sure to leave you folks with and the South Kohala partnership with is the opportunity to work together, and where our focus will be in the coming years, looking at expanding the work that we just talked about to include statewide partnerships. Yes, we are working on most of the islands, but our main focus has been here on Maui Nui for good reason, primary whale habitat. And there are opportunities to work more closely with the state through the Holomua initiative, with our local communities, many of which, you know, TNC works with, the South Kohala Partnership works with, and a lot of the community-based co-management that is happening or that's proposed, where communities are expressing interest in managing habitat, nearshore habitat, are within sanctuary boundaries. So we want to support those efforts and start the discussions about what does that mean? What would be helpful? How can we work together? The partnership is a great first step. And then how do we expand those partnerships, both, you know, in West Hawaii and across the state. And then habitat management. Again, our mission is to protect whales and their habitat. And their habitat is from the shoreline out to 600-foot depth. So how do we work with our state partners and community partners, NGOs, to better manage habitat for humpback whales? And also looking at some of the major threats to our islands, and how do we build coastal resilience? Because again, boundaries start at the coast. And how do we work with partners to help build coastal resilience so that our sanctuary habitat is more resilient over time? So I'm really interested in talking more with the partnership and the individual partners about these kinds of opportunities, and hearing other opportunities that you folks are thinking about as you start to think about the sanctuary and where we may be able to work together with you. And I think if we go to the next slide, that is it. So thank you all very much for your time. We, I think, have a little bit of time, maybe, Lauren, for questions.
We do. Does anyone have any questions for Kim and Cindy?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to mahalo you guys because I learned so much from that presentation about your work, and just really appreciate the beauty of your presentation and all the content that it included. And just that last point you were making, Kim, about you know, working together on the habitat management, coastal resilience, community-based management, just really supportive of that. And any way we can kind of dream big together with the South Kohala Coastal Partnership or our work across the state. Just love to work together with you on that. So great presentation, you guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Great to see you, Becca. I will say that it is a focus for West Hawaii, North Kona, South Kohala. That portion of the sanctuary is a renewed focus for us. And it really helps having Cindy there on island and able to meet and talk with folks. So, you know, very sincerely interested in your thoughts about how we can work together. And I know there were some efforts a while ago when Justin Rebecca was there in West Hawaii. And so building off of the work that was done previously and all of the great work of the partners there in West Hawaii, and just wanting to support and work with you folks in ways that are helpful to the resources we all care about.
Thanks. Does anybody have any other questions? Well, I have one specific question. When Cindy, you were talking about the telemetry with the tethering and suction cups, you know, you mentioned that the salt dissolves the device, but I was wondering, you know, are those devices then retrieved later on?
Yes, so definitely these are some very pricey equipment, so we love to get them back as soon as possible. So usually when hopefully we usually get the entanglement gear and that telemetry buoy off during a disentanglement response, but if it happens to be disconnected or disconnected at a earlier time before a response can be met, then we do send out folks to go and find it.
Thanks. And I know Stephen had a question.
Hi there. It's great to see you, Cindy. Good to see you again. Good to see you, Kim. Cindy, hopefully sometime maybe in the fall, you can come and talk to the Marine Option Program students and tell them a little bit about the sanctuary and about the work that you do. That would be that'd be nice.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I also had a question. Do you have any examples of how the Humpback Whale Sanctuary has been integrated into some of those 30 by 30 management plans? Is there examples that have happened already or that you're working on?
Stephen, it's great to see you again, although last time was better because we were on a boat on the water and it was fantastic. Rebecca was there. So we are just starting to have discussions with our state partners about the Holomua initiative, and really for our staff to begin to understand what it is and how have discussions with our state partners in how we can participate in that. That being said, we have started reaching out to community members just to have these kinds of conversations about the work that we do, our interest in partnering. The primary community partner that we have here on Maui actually are the folks who manage the fish pond that is just right out in front of our offices. You may have seen in one of those early photos. But you know, it is clear that communities who are interested in managing coastal resources are going to be here, you know, much longer than any of us, right? They have been and will be, and we want to support and encourage those efforts and provide support that is helpful to them. And so this is part of that, starting to reach out to understand what would be helpful and how we can participate and support individual communities and also the state through the Holomua initiative.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.